Hello, fellow leaders of the web. I'm Nathan Tranquilla. In this video, I'm going to talk about null safety, why it is desired in a web development language, how TypeScript falls short, and how a next-generation web dev language provides this for free. Here we go. All right, so let's talk about null safety. And what are we talking about? We're talking about null pointer exceptions. We want null safety because it will prevent runtime errors and forces the developer to specifically handle the null case. Handling the null case explicitly provides clarity and, in addition to that, reduces the amount of defensive coding that you have to add to the code base to supplement the lack of null safety. So let's go through an example. Here is an example in JavaScript. We have our setButtonText function. It accesses a DOM element by ID and sets the text content to click me. So when you invoke the setButtonText with non-existent string, then you get, in this case, because the element is not on the page, you get a runtime crash. If the element is on the page, no problem. But in this case, it will crash because we're going through an example of the element not being on the page. All right, let's try to fix this with TypeScript. So we have our TypeScript config and strict null checks are on, and we go ahead and code this function setButtonText. We're careful to set the type to HTML element, but we still make the same incorrect assumption, which is that it is always on the page. So when we invoke setButtonText, we also get a runtime error. No compile time error. This code compiles just fine, but we've made the improper assumption, or the developer has made the improper assumption that the element is on the page. So let's fix this. We've got the setButtonText takes in a string. The developer remembers that the HTML element might not be on the page, and so we have the type HTML element or null. And with the strict setting on in TypeScript, we're forced to check if the button is null. We're forced to add this null check, and then we can correctly add the text content or log an error to the console. So this works. This works, but it depends on, the fallback here is that it depends on the developer remembering that getting the element by ID, that the element might not be on the page, essentially. So is there another way? Is there a better way? So let's take a look at our final example, which is null safety in ReScript. And I'm putting it to you that this is true null safety built into the language. So we have our setButtonText. It uses the Web API DOM library to access the element on the page, which returns an option of the DOM element. And because of the exhaustive checks required, we're required to code for both cases. First case being that there is some element and that we can set the text content, or there is none. And so there's no way in a next generation web development language like ReScript where the developer can forget and get into a partial null safety scenario. There's always true null safety in ReScript. If you're curious about next-gen web dev languages, like, subscribe, and follow me on this journey. Bye now.